Annabelle wasn't in a hurry to go home, even though she was tired. She worked at the local store, doing everything by herself with no help. She played the roles of a loader, a bookkeeper, and a merchandiser, arranging the goods to look appealing. There were often conflicts too. Many customers were dissatisfied. And why were they dissatisfied? Because Annabelle repeatedly refused to give them things on credit. They didn't have money. Annabelle understood this, but she ran a store, not a charity. If she gave away goods for free, how would that be a business? For example, today Carton came in, asking for a bottle of alcohol on credit. Put it on my tab. Annabelle, my dear, I'll pay with my first paycheck, he said. Carton, you're already deep in debt. Annabelle replied. You haven't paid for April yet, and it's June now. Bring the money, and then we'll talk. Do you understand? He pressed his thin lips together. Is it that hard for you? Until you pay off at least May's debt, there will be no more credit. Either bring the money or stop drinking. Carton spent almost half an hour trying to persuade Annabelle to relent. She usually gave in, feeling sorry for him. But this time she decided to stand firm. She even felt a bit guilty. But Justin, her ex-husband, was right. If she gave credit to everyone, there would be no profit. Everyone knew Annabelle was kind-hearted, and they took advantage of her generosity. But she had children to support. Carton would survive, she thought. Annabelle looked at the sky. She loved looking at clouds, always finding shapes that resembled something familiar. Cloud cows, cloud elephants, and even cloud trains. She loved playing the same game with her children. Lying in a field, arms behind her head, and debating what each cloud looked like. She closed her eyes. One cloud looked like an angel with outstretched wings. If only God would send her a guardian angel from the sky. She felt forgotten by the celestial office. Annabelle, are you coming from work? Melissa's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. Melissa approached Annabelle. She was tall, with short white hair, already tanned and covered in freckles. She didn't look her 45 years at all. It was as if she stopped aging at 30. Despite working hard as a dairymaid on a farm, Annabelle sometimes envied Melissa. Annabelle herself aged rapidly, especially noticeable after 35. Her face sagged quickly, and wrinkles appeared. She wasn't lucky with genetics. But then, why did she need youth? She had lived her life. She had been married, had 2 children, even got divorced. Youth and beauty were for attracting men. Annabelle no longer needed men. They only brought problems. Yes, I'm coming from work. Annabelle waved. You must be tired. Huh? Melissa asked sympathetically. Oh, yes, I'm tired, Annabelle admitted. Everyone wants credit. No one wants to pay. Carton came again. I thought he wouldn't leave without getting a bottle of alcohol. Well, you know, Melissa laughed. It's your own fault. I told you, you spoiled them. And now they're used to your kindness. Be thankful they aren't paying with play money. Like children playing store. Annabelle smiled at Melissa's comment. When she first started her business, she gave away many goods on credit, believing that people would surely pay after payday. But no one was in a hurry to do so. Not just men, but women too. It's good weather, Annabelle remarked. She always loved this time of year, the beginning of summer. 3 warm months lay ahead with beautiful sunsets and that particularly warm, gentle evening sun. It felt as if youth returned in the summer, making her feel like a carefree girl again, whose biggest worries were deciding what to wear to a party and not staying out too late to avoid getting scolded by her mom. Life seemed simpler and brighter in the summer. Yeah, it's nice, Melissa replied indifferently. By the way, a woman came into town looking for a place to stay. I thought of you. Oh, who is she? Annabelle perked up. City folks often came to this small town for a month or even 2. Renting out a room to such visitors was an easy way to make money. Just provide them with a room and some meals. Simple as that. Just an ordinary woman, Melissa shrugged. She came to my mom, asking who rents rooms. Mom sent her to me. But you know, I can't take her this year. Annabelle nodded in understanding. Melissa had moved in with Derek, a tractor driver from the farm, in the spring. Melissa's house was small, and Derek didn't have a house of his own. So, taking in a tenant wasn't possible for Melissa, even if she wanted to. And besides, Melissa and Derek seemed to be quite noisy at night. That was another reason not to take in a tenant. Melissa wouldn't want some city girl running around in front of her future husband. Derek was a good guy. He didn't drink or smoke. But who knows what might cross a city girl's mind. Maybe she'd start walking around in a short robe, showing off her charms. Melissa would never say this out loud, of course, but Annabelle knew her since first grade and could easily predict her friends' thoughts. So, where is she now? Annabelle asked. At my mom's. You head home. I'll stop by and send her to you. You do have a free room, right? Yes, I do. Who else would be there? Well, isn't your Vivian supposed to get married soon? Melissa smirked. Maybe she moved in with Parker. How should I know? We hardly see each other anymore. Yes, we don't see each other. Annabelle winked. Because you're with your Derek all the time now. Found a man and don't need a friend anymore. Melissa blushed, but a smile played on her lips. She was in love like a schoolgirl, and Annabelle felt a twinge of envy. Annabelle knew she wouldn't fall in love again. She'd had enough. Melissa, honestly, I'm happy for you. Annabelle laughed. Maybe we'll be celebrating your wedding soon. Anyway, I should head home. The kids are probably waiting for me. Go on. Melissa nodded. And wait for that woman. Mom already advertised you well. Annabelle said goodbye to her friend and headed home. Home. She loved her house. It was a gift from her mother. Her father had built it with his own hands. Annabelle's mother was a city woman, beautiful like a movie star with huge brown eyes, full lips, and a mane of black hair. She would go to the city every 6 months to get a perm. Annabelle dreamed of getting one too when she grew up. She did get one after finishing school, going to the city with her mother. But her hair turned into a mess immediately. Annabelle cried for a week, hiding her burnt locks. She tried treating them with burdock oil, and her room reeked of it for a while. But the oil didn't help, and she had to cut her hair short. The house they lived in was a gift from her father to her mother. He fell in love with her while they were in college, and promised her that he would provide a living situation as good as, if not better than, what she had in the city. At 19, he started building the house and finished it by 23, then brought his bride from the city. She appreciated his hard work and agreed to be his wife. Annabelle's mother often shared how difficult it was for her at first. Having always lived in a heated apartment, she never imagined moving to such a small town. She had to learn to take care of chickens and goats. Her delicate hands became rough, and she forgot about wearing high-heeled shoes. There were many times she wanted to return to her former life, free of early mornings, endless harvests, and the sweet, warm smell of the chicken co-op. But she persevered. She became part of the community because she loved her husband dearly. She knew she wouldn't find another man who would build a house for her. Sitter boys, at best, might buy flowers and escort her to her apartment after a party. They were all spoiled. She appreciated that her husband could do anything: fix an outlet, catch fish, and build a gazebo in the garden. And she loved him deeply, with all her heart. He was caring and attentive. Annabelle's father never drank, even at celebrations, no matter how much he was persuaded. He didn't smoke either. Her mother said he used to smoke in his youth, but she disliked the smell of tobacco. She refused to kiss him after he had a cigarette. So, one day, he simply threw the pack in the trash and promised never to smoke again. And he kept his word. As a child, Annabelle watched her parents and believed that their love was the only way it could be. They loved each other like young lovers until the very end. They couldn't get enough of each other. Sometimes her mother would look in the mirror and lament about aging. But her father would just laugh and say, "You never change. You haven't changed for me. I still see you as I saw you the first day in front of that store window, admiring that incredible dress." Annabelle believed her father because she saw the look in his eyes and his smile. He had a special smile just for her mother. No one ever looked at Annabelle that way, and no one ever smiled at her like that. Her parents had been gone for 10 years, but Annabelle still remembered that smile from her parents. She inherited a large house, filled with love, a house whose foundation was built on parental care, warmth, and attention. She also had their grave, which she tried to visit once a month. She had chosen a joint photo for the headstone, where her parents were embracing by the gate. Annabelle instinctively knew they shouldn't be separated. Even in a photo, her house was cozy, spacious, and bright. Now, Annabelle lived there with her children, her older daughter Vivian and her younger son Victor. Vivian was already 16, and Victor was turning 13. They were good kids, and she was very proud of them. It seemed strange to her that she had them with Justin. He was so frivolous. He would never build a house like this. At best, he could only destroy one. Annabelle couldn't understand men like Justin. If you commit to something, see it through to the end. If you choose a woman, live with her. Don't flirt with others. Why cheat at all? Annabelle took a moment to admire her garden. She loved flowers. Many people laughed at her for it, saying she should grow something useful instead of turning her yard into a flower garden. But flowers are about more than practicality. They're about creating a mood. Walking into the garden and seeing the flowers made her heart happy. No, she would never give up her flowers. Her mother loved them too and used to grow roses. Oh, how those roses smelled, especially on summer evenings. That unforgettable aroma, particularly after the rain. But for some reason, Annabelle's roses never thrived. They wilted. Maybe roses only flourished for those who had love in their lives. Annabelle chuckled at the thought. Well, I don't need to start writing poetry at my age. Roses are red, violets are blue. She walked into the house and kicked off her sandals, which she had grown tired of wearing all day. What a relief. I'm home, she called out. Me too, Vivian replied. Mom, I made dinner. Come to the kitchen. Annabelle smiled. She was lucky with her kids. Vivian had learned to cook at 12 and was now even attempting to bake pies. She had grown very independent. Maybe that wasn't such a good thing. Annabelle was always working, so Vivian had to take on the household chores. Annabelle peeked into the living room. Her daughter was lying on the couch with a book, legs propped up against the wall. Annabelle winced. Vivian had been doing that since she was little, leaving marks on the wallpaper. Sweetheart, I've asked you to lie down properly. Sorry, Mom. Vivian sat up, tucking her legs under her, shaking her thick chestnut hair. I got carried away. Where's Victor? He ran to the lake to catch some fish. Her daughter replied. Mom, can I go to Parker's for a sleepover tomorrow? What? Vivian. No sleepovers. Annabelle frowned. I don't need you getting pregnant at 16. Come on, Mom. Vivian blushed. We're just going to hang out and talk. Sure, just talk. Annabelle walked over to the wardrobe, took off her jeans and t-shirt, and pulled out a light robe. No, Vivian, sorry. No sleepovers for now. I've seen too many shows about pregnant teenagers. Mom, Parker isn't like that, right? They're all not like that. No, Vivian. Not yet. Maybe later. Finish school first. Then we'll see about you staying over at Parker's. Mom, what difference does it make? We're going to get married anyway. Vivian shrugged. All the other girls are allowed. Well, let them be allowed. Annabelle chuckled. Seems you are not so lucky with your mom. Vivian. There was a gentle knock at the door. Vivian gave her mother a questioning look. Honey, that's the boarder, Annabelle explained. It's a bit early, though. I haven't even eaten. Quickly, Tidy up your things so it's not awkward." Vivian immediately jumped up and started picking up her things, while Annabelle went to open the door. She hoped this arrangement would work out. She needed the money. Her daughter was planning to go to college next year, dreaming of moving to the city to become a hairdresser. Annabelle supported Vivian's dream, but the thought of the expenses was daunting. She would need to buy all those tools, combs, scissors, whatever else they needed. And if the dormitory was subpar, they might have to shell out for an apartment or at least a room. Plus, she'd need to buy Vivian new clothes for the city. Annabelle didn't want her daughter to be embarrassed by old jeans and out-of-fashion tops. The store brought in money, but not as much as she'd like. Having a boarder would be just the thing. And then there was Victor, who was growing fast. His feet were already a size 10 at 13 years old. Every summer, he shot up at least 2 inches. She should have chosen a shorter husband. Victor's father was tall, and their son took after him. Even in this, he managed to be a nuisance. Annabelle opened the door and saw a short, slender woman standing there. At first, she thought the woman was very young, maybe around 25. But upon closer inspection, Annabelle noticed the fine lines around her eyes and mouth. She was probably about Annabelle's age. "Hello. I was told you have a nice room for rent." The visitor smiled. "I'm interested." "Yes, I do," Annabelle confirmed. "Come into the living room and we can talk." "Thank you. My name is Simona," the woman said with a nod. "I'm planning to stay until the end of summer." Annabelle introduced herself, continuing to assess her guest. Simona's hair was braided. Her neck was thin and fragile looking. Those large, brown eyes were sad. Annabelle guessed that Simona's life hadn't turned out well. When a woman's life is good, her eyes are different, bright, smiling, even when her lips aren't. That's how Melissa's eyes looked now, ever since she met Derek. They went into the living room. Simona sat gracefully in an armchair, crossing her legs elegantly. Annabelle noticed again how thin she was. Maybe she was ill. Her voice was soft and timid. Something about her seemed off. "Well, I don't need much," Simona began. "Just a place to sleep and wash. I can cook for myself." "We won't let you go without lunch," Annabelle smiled. "I'm a good cook. My daughter also cooks when I'm at work. Simple, tasty, hearty food. And everything is fresh. Fresh eggs. It's all included in the price, like at the best hotels." Simona adjusted her hair with a slender hand. "I try to eat less. Dieting. You know, you could use a bit more weight," Annabelle remarked. "You're so thin." "Did Melissa tell you the price?" "Yes, she did. And it's fine with me." Simona nodded. "Good. Let me show you the room. They told you I have 2 children, right?" "Yes, they did. But they're older." "Right." Simona seemed to become a bit sadder. Annabelle wondered what had happened in her life. Maybe she would share more later. Simona liked the room. It was bright, small but cozy. Annabelle had recently cleaned, changed the curtains, and washed the windows. "This is very nice," Simona said, clearly pleased. "I like it. Can I move my things in? By the way, I can pay the rent up front if that's convenient. So, no one has to worry about it later." "Yes, that's convenient." Annabelle was delighted. "Perfect." Annabelle was planning to go to the city in a week to deposit the money. She had a separate account where she kept savings for her children, Vivian's college fund, and new clothes for the rapidly growing Victor. She liked depositing money into that account. It gave her a sense of security for the future. If only she had a reliable man in her life, everything would be easier. Her ex-husband, Justin, didn't care about the kids. Sure, he paid child support, but it was a pittance. Meanwhile, he lived well, recently taking a trip to the islands with his new wife. Sometimes, Annabelle wanted to set things right, but she didn't want to deal with Justin. He'd just make her life miserable. No, it was better this way. She could manage on her own. It was more peaceful. Annabelle's son, Victor, came back home, and she asked him to help Simona with her luggage. He agreed readily. Once they finished moving her things, Annabelle invited Simona to join them for dinner, but she declined and retreated to her room. "She's odd," noted Vivian. "And so skinny." "Keep your voice down." Annabelle hushed her daughter. "We don't want to offend our guest. We need the money, especially for you. You plan to move to the city, remember?" "Still, she's strange, Mom." Vivian shrugged. "By the way, Parker wants to move to the city too. Maybe we could live together. He's planning to find a job there. Can you imagine?" "I won't allow you to live together. You're not even 18 yet." "I will be, Mom," Vivian replied. "I'm not a child anymore." Annabelle sighed. She remembered having the same conversations with her own mother, insisting she was grown up at 15 or 16. She truly believed she was wiser than everyone. Now, looking at Vivian, she saw a young girl who needed protection from the world, and even from Parker. Why were they in such a hurry? They would have plenty of time to be adults. It would get tiresome eventually. "Mom, I want to go to the city too," her son Victor said importantly. "I'm going to be a train conductor." Victor had long dreamed of becoming a train conductor. He was fascinated by trains, freight cars, and electric trains since childhood. He built models and collected books. His table was adorned with a model railway. Maybe his dream would come true, but it meant more expenses. How would she find the money to support 2 children? "You will, Victor," Annabelle promised. "But first, what do you need to do?" "Well, I need to finish school well first." Victor smiled. "Mom, I will. I promise." Annabelle didn't feel like washing dishes. She delegated that task to Victor and quickly washed up and went to her room. She had work again tomorrow. Maybe she should hire a salesperson, but she didn't want to pay a salary. Besides, if you want something done right, do it yourself. Vivian helped in the store sometimes, but she wasn't much of a helper. Annabelle could refuse to give credit to customers, but Vivian, being trusting, let people take advantage of her kindness. She felt sorry for everyone. While it was good that Vivian grew up kind, people could lie with a smile on their faces. Why should Annabelle give in and pity everyone? She knew people in town talked about her, saying she was arrogant since opening the store. But Annabelle didn't care. No one had ever given her anything for free. So why should she owe anyone? She never dreamed of becoming a local businesswoman. What she wanted was to have a family like her parents, with children and a cozy home. Her father gave his whole paycheck to her mother. If he had extra work, he took it, just to make sure her mother had everything she needed. And the gifts he gave her, everyone was envious. Her mother had a real fur coat, a luxurious, long black one. Her father saved for it for about 5 years to surprise his wife. She laughed, saying, "Where would I wear it? To collect eggs in the chicken co-op." But her eyes shone with happiness. Eyes never lie. And how her father loved Annabelle. She had the best toys, the prettiest dolls. He called her his little princess. It must be how men work if they love their woman. They adore their children too. That great love extends to the kids. Without love, they don't care about the children. Take Justin, for example. He didn't care about his kids before, and he doesn't now. He's forgotten Victor and Vivian. Thankfully, Justin's brother, Mike, hasn't abandoned them. He helps financially and visits occasionally, though rarely, as he works a lot up north as a geologist. Justin had really ruined Annabelle's life. She often blamed him, though she knew she was foolish to fall for his good looks, dazzling smile, and confident demeanor. In the end, she was left alone with 2 children. She had just graduated from high school. Like many of her classmates, Annabelle dreamed of moving to a big city. Her father was, of course, against it. He worried about his daughter, fearing she would be mistreated. At the time, Annabelle didn't understand him, but now she did. He must have been heartbroken at the thought of his daughter being all alone. Her mother, on the other hand, reacted more calmly, saying it was time for Annabelle to become independent. If not for her mother, Annabelle might have stayed in their small town and things would have turned out differently. But her father always listened to her mother, so he reluctantly let Annabelle go. Annabelle enrolled in college to become an accountant. It was a good, well-paying profession, and she always loved math. College was full of girls like her, coming from small towns in search of a better life. Annabelle enjoyed her studies and excelled in them. She participated in student activities, sang to the guitar, and even joined the drama club. She believed she had a bright future ahead. She would get her diploma, marry, have children, and her husband would build a house for her, just like her father did for her mother. To Annabelle, love was something active, not just moonlit sighs and passionate kisses. No, a man should prove his love through actions, not just words. After graduating, Annabelle's friend invited her to her hometown to celebrate. There, she met Justin. They went to a party at her friend's house. Annabelle wore her best dress, white with blue flowers, and let her hair down. Back then, her hair was long, thick, and dark. Justin immediately noticed Annabelle and didn't leave her side all evening, showering her with compliments, dancing with her, and looking into her eyes so intensely that Annabelle felt dizzy and her knees weakened. After the party, her friend sternly warned Annabelle not to even think about Justin. Why? Annabelle asked, surprised. He's so handsome. Do you like him? Annabelle, don't. He's a womanizer. I'm warning you. One girl already got pregnant by him and had to get an abortion. Her friend lowered her voice. His mom sent him to the OMI to straighten him out. But when he came back, he started his old ways again. He was dating 2 girls at the same time. Both of them. You know what I mean. Dating both at the same time. Annabelle exclaimed. Not at the same time. Silly. He was seeing 2 girls and promised to marry both. One of them got pregnant again. It was a huge scandal. Justin refused to marry her. Her parents took her to another city to avoid the shame and keep from Justin, so Annabelle, forget about him. This guy will only bring you heartache. Annabelle stayed with her friend for a month and soon forgot her warnings. Justin courted her beautifully, bringing her flowers, inviting her on walks, and behaving like a true gentleman. Annabelle fell madly in love with him, enchanted by his smile, his face, and the way his fingers danced over the guitar strings in the evenings as they sat outside. He sang songs just for her, only for her. Her friend gave up on trying to warn Annabelle about Justin, hoping she would soon go back home and forget him. But it was too late. Annabelle knew Justin was the only guy she needed. She had never felt anything like this before. And his past. Who didn't have a past? Justin was 24, so it was understandable he had a history. It would be strange if he didn't. One day, Annabelle decided to ask him about his past. Did Rita tell you? Justin frowned. Yes, she nodded. I wanted to ask you. Is it true? Annabelle, any story can be told in different ways, from different perspectives. Yes, I fell in love with a girl when I was 18. My first love. So what? She suddenly claimed she was pregnant. We'd only been together once. No one gets pregnant the first time. I know that. She even lied that I was her first. Well, said Annabelle, that's really not okay. Of course, it's not. Justin nodded. But that's not the whole story. Annabelle, my friends later told me she was seeing another guy. A newcomer. His family rented a house in our town for the summer. I went fishing with my dad for a week, and she snuck into his place at night. What do you think they were doing? Watching movies, playing dominoes. He left, and suddenly she was pregnant. Naturally, I said the baby wasn't mine. She immediately started crying and threatened that some guys would beat me up if I didn't marry her. I refused. Why would I? The baby wasn't mine. I didn't want a girl like that or to raise someone else's child. Yeah, exactly. Annabelle fumed. Let her go to that guy and live with him. That's what I said. Justin nodded. Anyone would say the same. But no one believed me back then. So I joined the army. I said that when the baby was born, we'd see. We'd see if it looked like me or not. That guy had blonde hair and blue eyes. And me, look at my eyes, brown. And my hair, black. She figured out she was caught and ran off to get an abortion. If the baby had been mine, would she have done that? No, of course not. No, she wouldn't have. Annabelle agreed. That's what I'm saying. I'm glad you believe me. And about those two other girls, well, I only had a thing with one of them. Yes, it happened. I'm not hiding it. Why should I? What, am I supposed to live like a monk? The other one just had a crush on me, following me everywhere, pestering me. Then she started telling everyone I was messing with her, saying we were involved. But we weren't. I swear, we weren't. I didn't need her. She was chubby, with cross eyes and legs like a cow. But she started saying she was pregnant too, spreading rumors about me. That's how it all went down. I was planning to leave that town. Thought they'd never leave me alone. Am I to blame that girls like me? No, you're not. Annabelle hugged Justin. Thank you for explaining everything. I was worried that maybe what they said about you was true. They're lying. Justin sighed. You can trust me, Annabelle. But don't trust your friend too much. Your Rita has hinted many times that she'd like to have some fun with me. But I keep turning her down. I don't want to. Maybe that's why she's jealous and trying to mess things up for us. Because I really like you, Annabelle. And Rita, I don't like at all. Annabelle was happy. She believed Justin. She would have believed him even if he said he saw Bigfoot in the forest. They say love is blind. And it's true. Black seems white and white seems black. In September, Annabelle returned to her parents with her fiancé. Justin made a good impression on her mother and father. They decided to have a wedding. The preparations were thorough. Everything had to be perfect. The feast, the dancing, the white dress, the veil. Annabelle couldn't believe it was really happening to her. Was she really a bride? It felt so surreal. Like everyone would soon realize she was just pretending to be grown up enough to get married. But in the end, she became Justin's wife. Her parents bought them a house. Small, but sturdy, even with a room for a nursery. Annabelle wanted children very much. What kind of family doesn't have children? A new life began. Annabelle got a job as an accountant at the local farm. Justin worked as a machine operator. She was quite happy. She had a husband, a salary, a house where she loved keeping things tidy and cozy for her beloved. What more could she need? And soon they would have children. Annabelle dreamed of having a boy and a girl. That was happiness, the kind everyone dreams of, even if they don't always admit it out loud. A year later, she met Mike, Justin's older brother. Justin was proud of his brother, though he said they never got along well. Mike was 6 years older. He left for the city after high school, went to university, and studied to be a geologist. Now he worked in the north, earning good money and saving up for an apartment. He's a tough one, Justin said. It's not that he doesn't love me, but he just never paid much attention. Probably because of the age difference. I keep thinking it'll get easier with time. As we get older, the age difference won't matter as much. Finally, Mike came to visit his brother and his new wife. Mike made quite an impression on Annabelle. While Justin was tall, muscular, and attractive, with girls always turning their heads to look at him, Mike was the complete opposite, shorter than Annabelle, extremely skinny, with a large hooked nose and sharp, angular features. His gaze was piercing. Annabelle didn't like Mike at all. She thought he probably disliked his brother because Justin was kinder, more handsome, and more popular with women. Mike stayed with them for 3 days, and Annabelle noticed that he barely spoke to Justin, keeping his distance as if they were strangers. He was more talkative with Annabelle, even making jokes, and brought her gifts. a necklace of red stones and a beautiful amber brooch. But he brought nothing for his brother. When Mike left, Justin joked that it seemed like he had come only to see Annabelle. "Oh, look, he talked to you but not to me." Justin laughed. "Maybe he's fallen for my wife." The rascal. "Oh, stop it. Fallen in love?" Annabelle blushed. "I don't think someone like him falls in love at all. He seems so bitter." "Yeah, he's always been like that." Justin nodded. "But he's smart." Mike visited a few more times, always talking only to Annabelle, helping with chores, and bringing gifts. He kept his distance from Justin. A few years passed. Annabelle and Justin still had no children, despite their efforts. There had been a miscarriage, after which Annabelle took years to recover. She blamed herself, thinking she must have some hidden defect. But the doctors just shrugged and said both were healthy, with no obstacles to having children. "Keep trying," they said, "and eventually it will happen." Annabelle began to suspect Justin of cheating a few years before Vivian was born. He stayed late at work and smelled of unfamiliar perfume. Annabelle pushed these thoughts away. How could her Justin cheat? He loved her. Otherwise, he wouldn't be with her. But thoughts of other women persistently intruded, and Annabelle couldn't shake them. People at work started talking, saying they'd seen Justin with someone, that he was getting close to Polly, the cook. He walked her home and sometimes went to her place after work. Annabelle tried not to think about it. The idea of Justin with another woman broke her heart. She loved him too much. She started trying harder, cooking better, dressing better. She dyed her hair wheat color, like Polly, though it didn't suit her at all. Polly was a blonde, so Annabelle decided to try it, just in case. Half her hair fell out, but Annabelle felt fashionably beautiful. Then she got pregnant and temporarily forgot about Polly. Annabelle eagerly awaited the baby's arrival, their first child. She did everything the doctors advised, took vitamins, worked a lot, didn't lift heavy objects. But in the 8th month, Annabelle became unwell. She swelled up, had blurred vision, and her blood pressure spiked. She was hospitalized. Annabelle's mother went with her. Justin refused, saying he had too much work and that it wasn't a man's place to be there. He'd wait for his wife to come home with the baby and then help as much as he could. Annabelle was a bit upset with her husband but didn't argue. She was too scared of losing the baby again. Justin was right. He didn't need to be in the hospital. Seeing her looking disheveled, pale, and with needle marks on her arms. Fortunately, the doctors managed to save the pregnancy, although Annabelle was bedridden for almost a month with 4 drips. Eventually, she gave birth to a girl. They decided to name her Vivian. Annabelle's father and her best friend, Melissa, came to pick up the baby from the hospital. Justin didn't come. He was working. They wouldn't let him off. But he wasn't home either. Melissa helped settle Vivian, while Annabelle's mom cooked lunch. Justin still hadn't returned. "We should go get him," Melissa suggested. "What kind of job doesn't let you leave even for a moment? Is he performing surgery or something? I'll go fetch him from the farm. He'll come," Annabelle's mom said. "Don't bother him." "Mom, what's wrong with you?" Annabelle was annoyed. "I don't like this at all. You stay with Vivian. I'll go get him myself." "How are you feeling, friend?" Melissa asked. "I'll go with you. We won't be long." Justin wasn't at the farm. Annabelle started to worry. Where could he be? It's like he vanished into thin air, and on such an important day. But she couldn't search for him. She needed to feed the newborn Vivian regularly. Melissa took on the search, and after an hour, Justin was found, coming out of Polly's house, the very cook. Melissa saw him and ran up, waving her arms furiously. "Where have you been? Your wife came home from the hospital, and you are nowhere to be found." "Oh, I guess I forgot that today is the day." He frowned. "Well, it happens, doesn't it?" "It doesn't happen. You're clueless. Go home." Annabelle is beside herself. Melissa snapped. After that incident, Annabelle didn't talk to Justin for almost a week. The man admitted he had indeed been at Polly's. She asked him to fix an outlet that was sparking, fearing the house might catch fire sooner or later. I forgot about the discharge. It slipped my mind. Justin justified. I've been working double shifts while you were away, just to make time fly faster. That's all it was. Annabelle believed her husband, because she wanted to believe. But something had ruptured irreparably in their relationship. Do men behave like this? A husband should greet his wife from the hospital with flowers. It's just common decency. Annabelle was devastated. A month in the hospital, then difficult childbirth with heavy bleeding. And he's there fixing outlets for some Polly. Initially, Justin was a great father, getting up with his daughter, playing with her, taking walks with the stroller. But his enthusiasm lasted only a couple of months. It seemed like he got tired of playing that role. The man decided to shift all the responsibilities onto his wife's shoulders. When she asked for help, he refused, saying he was tired from work, reminding her what time he got home. And anyway, it was women's work to take care of the baby. He earned the money and deserved to rest on the couch after work. By the way, he did come home from work late, sometimes past midnight. There was always some meeting, or the tractor broke down, or the guys needed his help. Annabelle thought that was just how it should be. But a treacherous inner voice screamed, Justin has someone else, maybe more than one woman. Justin had always been passionate. At first, he could go 3 or 4 times a night. And now, once a month, if that. So, somewhere, he was satisfying his needs. Maybe with Polly. Polly was glowing and looked at Annabelle strangely when they crossed paths, mysteriously smiling. There were all sorts of rumors about Polly too. She became a widow 4 years ago. Her husband drowned while swimming drunk, and they didn't manage to save him. Since then, Polly started inviting men over. That's how she got her nickname, the Merry Widow. But Polly didn't care. Maybe she was right. You shouldn't pay attention to rumors. Justifying yourself only makes it worse. Then Annabelle's father died. A heart attack. Instant death. The death of a righteous man. Annabelle was barely holding on. Only Vivian saved her. A smile from her daughter made things a bit easier. But Annabelle's mother worried her. After her husband's death, the woman faded like a candle in the wind. She darkened entirely, shriveled up, seemed to even shrink in height. And 3 months later, Annabelle's mother was gone too. She went to be with her husband. She couldn't and didn't want to live without him. Justin wanted to sell the house, saying they could put the money in the bank and use it for Vivian's education or buy an apartment in the city altogether. But Annabelle flatly refused. She couldn't sell the house where she grew up, the house her father built with so much love for her mother. Annabelle's husband was offended but didn't insist, although he often brought up the topic of selling. 2 years later, Annabelle realized she was pregnant again. It happened accidentally. She didn't want it at all, even planned to have an abortion. She thought, how could this happen? She loves her daughter. Does this mean Vivian will get less love? Melissa talked her out of the abortion. You fool, her friend shouted. To destroy your own child. What are you thinking? Because of some nonsense. Remember how you prayed for Vivian, and now a second child isn't needed. Annabelle pondered and decided Melissa was right. She pushed away those foolish thoughts. And that's how Victor came into the world. Annabelle somehow thought that with the arrival of a son, everything would improve between them. And it seemed to work. Justin rushed home from work again, stopped visiting Polly. The man was proud of his son. These men were funny. Everyone needs an heir. When Victor turned 1, Annabelle left her husband. She left easily, as if she had long been preparing to wade into cold water, then sprinted and jumped in. She left because Polly came to her and told her everything. Why? It's not clear. Maybe she decided that the time had come. that she needed to act already. After all, Justin couldn't bring himself to leave his legal wife. It turned out that Justin had been having an affair with Polly for many years, that he practically lived in two houses, that he gave gifts Polly instead of Annabelle, and that he promised to resolve the situation. A couple of years ago, he was about to divorce, but Annabelle got pregnant with Victor. "He's an honest man," Polly said. "Let him go. Don't torment the man. He loves me, and he just tolerates you. I'm telling you this not to offend you, but to open your eyes. I feel sorry for you, silly," Polly declared back then. Annabelle left with the children to her parents' house, calmly, without tears or hysterics. She was amazed at herself. Why was it so? Not a single tear shed. And then she realized she had felt everything, understood everything a woman feels when she's not loved. Annabelle's mother was beloved. Until her husband's death, she blossomed, rejoiced in life, as if his love was water that Annabelle's mother drank. When her husband was gone, the drought came, and the woman withered instantly. And Annabelle herself had been living without this water for a long time, became a desert plant, prickly like a cactus. But it's okay. She had children. Her love was meant for them, and she didn't intend to love anyone else. She had to conserve this feeling, not waste it. Justin went to Polly, also without explaining anything. Annabelle's friend, Melissa, thought that maybe he asked Polly to tell Annabelle everything because he was afraid to. Melissa didn't like men at all. She was also burned. One drank, the other beat her, the third ended up behind bars, stole money. So Melissa and Annabelle decided they would live for themselves, but Annabelle also for the children, and Melissa would be a loving aunt to them. Over time, Justin left Polly too, and found some woman in the city. Polly left too. Where? No one knew for sure, but no one in town missed Polly either. Women even rejoiced. Now the guys had nowhere to go in the evenings. Let them sit at home. And Annabelle forever hated women like Polly. Home wreckers. They intrude into someone else's family instead of taking care of their own. They probably only affirm themselves in this way. They think that they, being chosen by a man, are better than the legal wife. No, such women don't deserve to be talked to, not even greeted. After the divorce, Annabelle faced a huge problem. There was never enough money. The children were growing up. One thing was needed, then another. Annabelle wanted to give the best to her heirs, so that they didn't wear out their clothes, but wore new ones, so that their toys were good, so that when the time came, they could go study wherever they wanted. But Annabelle's salary was tiny, and Justin didn't rush to pay child support, except for his brother Mike, who helped. Even though he got married, he didn't forget about his nephews. He came to Annabelle once a year. He helped with household chores, brought gifts, and he also sent something. Annabelle put this money into a separate account for the children. She didn't touch it herself. And one day Annabelle decided to take action. She decided to open her own shop. There was a small store in town, but it was small, and you had to go to the neighboring town. Annabelle saved up money, found a place, bought the first batch of goods, and it seemed like the business was taking off. Although many laughed at her, how could a woman manage it alone? But Annabelle managed. She coped. There were groceries and household chemicals. Then there was a shelf with cosmetics. It was hard for Annabelle. Paperwork, studying laws, purchases she initially didn't understand much. Then she gave a lot of goods on credit. She kept a special notebook where she wrote down the debtors. She thought people would surely bring the money, but they didn't rush. Annabelle realized that they considered her one of them, and it seemed like it wasn't necessary to return the money. And gradually, she stopped helping everyone, and they started calling her a snooty blighter. But it was better to be a blighter than to go into the red and starve. Although there were many scandals, some even threatened to set fire to the store and to bury Annabelle somewhere in the nearest forest. Well, They didn't set fire to the store. They didn't bury Annabelle. But they started to respect her. What to do? Life's like that. How you present yourself is how people will treat you. And people tend to take advantage of kindness. It's all a fairy tale. That how you treat people is how they'll treat you. No. If you're kind, soft, people will just use you. Because often kindness is mistaken for weakness. And Annabelle could only afford to be used by her own children with her kindness. The chosen strategy bore fruit. Annabelle saved money for her children's education. Bought a good computer so both Victor and Vivian could have tutors. She did some renovations in the house. The woman felt quite happy, except for the occasional loneliness that plagued her. It seemed okay, but when she looked at couples, her heart would ache. And she was all alone, all by herself. Sometimes she just wanted to feel like a woman, complain to someone, hug and feel that there's someone behind her who will protect, help, and support her. It seemed like men paid attention to Annabelle, especially when she was younger. But Annabelle didn't trust anyone anymore. But fate didn't give her the kind of love her parents had. Nothing could be done about it. So she lived with her children, her work, and her household chores. And Annabelle got used to not complaining to anyone about life. And then she decided to rent out a room. Last year, a family lived with her in the summer. Good people. They brought gifts for the children from the city. Books, building sets. Now Simona moved in. She seemed like a calm woman. There shouldn't be any problems with her. Things were going well with Simona indeed. But she was somehow strange, quiet, kept to herself. She didn't tell anything about herself. And women usually like to chat, tell about their whole life. And she doesn't. She leaves in the morning, comes back in the evening. She works a lot, collects flowers in the fields or sits by the lake. And she hardly eats. Annabelle cooked good soups, salads, and apple pies. But Simona doesn't eat that. She thanks but eats only apples and drinks tea constantly. Annabelle thought maybe she was losing weight. Although where else could she lose weight? She's not even a woman. She's a working skeleton. You could cut yourself on her collarbones. Not hands, but branches. In short, Simona isn't from around here. Local women asked Annabelle what's up with her strange roommate. Thin, maybe she's sick. And what kind of entertainment does she have? Walking alone and collecting flowers. And Annabelle just shrugged. Well, she's just relaxing. The woman would reply, well, maybe she likes it. What's it to you? And Annabelle didn't really care about Simona. Vivian started to behave strangely. She was always cheerful and sociable. And then suddenly, as if she closed up, she sits at home all day and reads books. She stopped going out with Parker. Maybe they had a fight. Annabelle tried to talk to her daughter, but she got nowhere. Like, everything's fine, Mom. Leave me alone. Annabelle was worried, but she decided to wait a bit. Vivian was going through a difficult age. Like she's an adult, but also still a child. Doesn't know how to live in her new adult role yet. She's getting used to it. Learning to deal with completely different issues. What problems did she have before? Mom bought the wrong doll, or she failed a test. And now she has Parker. It would be better, of course, to ask her mother for advice. But that's the kind of Vivian she grew up to be. Although no, she's still small. Well, it'll all work out. One evening, Annabelle was coming home from work and ran into her friend Melissa. They decided to walk together, chat a bit. How's it going with Derek? Did he propose? Annabelle asked. The friend suddenly looked gloomy. No, he didn't. He's not in a hurry to get married. Oh, I don't like this. Seems like he likes your Simona. Melissa, what are you talking about? How's that possible? Yeah, that's how it is. Annabelle, they were seen together. She's always out in the field and works there, like a cow grazing. Tamala saw him go to her, and she's smiling, batting her eyes. Annabelle, Maybe you should kick her out of your room. How do you expect me to kick her out? Out of the house, yeah. Let her go somewhere else and flirt with other men. In the fields. Melissa, calm down and better talk to Derek first. Maybe he just went to chat. And you've already made up some nonsense. Oh, Annabelle, it's easy for you to say. Melissa frowned. You've been without men for a long time. And they're like that. Where you pull him, there he runs. Melissa, well, then pull him in the right direction. What's wrong with you? Annabelle suggested. Oh, look, she's out working again. Melissa suddenly waved her hand towards the field. Annabelle peered closely and saw the slender silhouette of Simona. She was walking, carrying wild flowers in her hands, and even wore a wreath on her head. Seems like she's just like Polly. A homewrecker. Well, I see her strolling. Annabelle nodded. But to be fair, she's working alone, without your Derek. Melissa. Tamala could have lied. As if you don't know. She's been envious of you for a long time. Maybe she decided to cause trouble. You know, women are snakes. They never forgive others' happiness. Oh, I know. Annabelle, I know. Her friend replied gloomily. Listen, maybe you'll slip something into her drink. So she stays home, doesn't step out of the bathroom. What? Annabelle looked at her friend in shock. Are you serious, Melissa? I think that's going too far. They both fell silent for a while. Then Melissa shook off the mood and said, Oh no, I just kidding. Oh, don't scare me. Annabelle laughed too. And please, don't worry, Melissa. She'll leave in the fall, but she's not just strolling with Derek. Melissa looked around as if afraid they might be overheard. Sarah from work said her husband asked about Simona. Like, who is she? Listen, Annabelle, something's fishy about this woman. Annabelle shook her head. Who needs Simona anyway? Skinny as a twig, wraps herself in her shawl, and wanders around the outskirts of town. Maybe that's what attracts people. The mystery. Normal women don't have so much free time to stroll in the meadows. Seriously, some people have nothing better to do, don't they? Perhaps Simona doesn't need to stand behind a counter from morning till night in a store to support her children. Listen, maybe she has a wealthy man, Annabelle speculated. He gave her money to relax here. If he were wealthy, he'd send her somewhere else. Not here. Melissa replied. There was sense in her words. Annabelle decided she'd definitely talk to Simona and find out who she is, where she came from, and how she makes a living. By the way, Mike promised to come in a couple of weeks. Annabelle remembered. Oh, that's the same brother of Justin. Yeah. Who else? And is he still with his wife? Melissa brightened up. See, I always told you, you should have gone for Mike. Not that fool Justin. Oh, I don't need Mike. Annabelle sighed. And I didn't like him back then. But yeah, he still lives with his wife. He complained about some problems there, but I don't know. We haven't seen each other for over a year. Near the house, Annabelle and her friends said their goodbyes. Annabelle, enjoying the coolness indoors, lay down on the couch. It was hot today. And for some reason, you get more tired in the heat, and your legs swell. It's good that the house is cool. Annabelle's father had thought of everything, built for the people he loved. So it turned out that in winter, the house warmed, and in summer, on the contrary, it cooled. Because without love, nothing good comes out. Vivian, her daughter, came from somewhere, exchanged a few words with her mother, and ran to her room. Annabelle watched the girl for a moment. What's wrong with her, really? Must be true that something's wrong with Parker, and they've quarreled. Although it's probably for the best. Annabelle didn't like Parker. Frivolous. Reminded her of Justin in some ways. Annabelle had always been afraid that her daughter would repeat her fate. Get involved with the wrong person. Age prematurely. End up alone. And with children to care for. Later, Victor, her son, returned. He boasted that he had beaten all the boys in chess. showed a bruise on his leg. He fell off the slide while racing with friends. Annabelle praised her son for his victory, but scolded him a bit for the bruise. Then she went to prepare dinner. No point in lying around. Things won't do themselves. She couldn't wait for Mike to come. A good man, he'll fix everything, won't refuse, and you can talk to him, complain about life. Annabelle doubted whether her life was really of much interest to him. He's a geologist, about to defend his dissertation. Jokes that it's too late. Others defend it at 30, and he's almost 50. He worked a lot, didn't have time for science. Dreams of becoming a candidate and going to work at the university as a lecturer. He's tired, he says. Mike got married about 15 years ago. Annabelle was always amazed by him. Seemed like a smart guy, hard-working, plenty of money, yet he was still alone. She even asked him why he waited so long. And Mike would sadly reply that the right one hadn't come along. Annabelle felt sorry for him. It's tough being so intelligent. Maybe guys like him look for a woman to match, someone they can talk to. But how many of those women are out there? Probably can count them on one hand. And now it seems Mike has found his happiness. She seems nice. Also a geologist. Young, 6 years younger than Mike. But something seems off with them. They argue often. Mike hardly tells anything. They fight, and that's it. But they seem to be living together. At least, during rare phone calls. He didn't mention divorce to Annabelle. Dinner was ready, and Simona returned just as Annabelle finished setting the table, as if she sensed the smell. But as always, she refused dinner. Why bother losing more weight? Such a strange one. Women go to such lengths for men. But on the other hand, men like to have something to hold on to. 3 days later, coming back from work, Annabelle found Simona at home with Derek, Melissa's fiancé. As she approached the house, she heard them arguing loudly about something. As soon as the homeowner entered, the couple fell silent. Annabelle saw Derek sitting on the couch. The man was all red. Simona, as usual, wrapped in her shawl, sat in the armchair. "Hello, Derek," Annabelle greeted coldly. "How's Melissa? What are you doing here? Did she ask you to pass something along?" And Derek just shook his head. "No, just stopped by, and it's time for me to go." "Well, then go." Annabelle frowned. The man hastily said goodbye and left. The homeowner immediately wanted to kick Simona out. If Melissa finds out, she'll be hurt. She'll think it's Annabelle's fault. And Simona is good too, shamelessly stealing someone else's man. "Sorry," Simona said quietly. "We met on the street. He said he wanted to talk to you, so I invited him." "No need," Annabelle said dryly. "What will people think?" Simona shrugged, as if trying to defend herself from Annabelle. She understands. She understands everything perfectly. She's a loose woman. Annabelle immediately remembered Polly. She was like that too. As soon as she saw a man, she couldn't rest. Yes, Simona is beautiful after all. That's why she's using her beauty, even though she's not a young girl anymore. "Simona, you know, I find this unpleasant." Annabelle frowned. "Derek is my friend's fiancé. They're already planning their wedding, and you brought him here. Why? What are you implying?" Simona's eyes widened. "That I was planning something with him. How am I supposed to know? Maybe if I had come later, I would have found you under him." Simona jumped up. "No way. I won't allow it. I'll leave tomorrow." She threw one last glance at Annabelle and stormed out of the room. The homeowner heard Simona slam the door behind her. "Oh, to hell with her. Let her leave, and I won't return her money." Well, maybe just part of it. This is the last thing I needed. Turning this place into a dating house. How will I look Melissa in the eye now? And Derek? He looked at Simona so approvingly. She may be thin, but she's cute. What kind of name is Simona anyway? Annabelle thought. The woman changed into her robe and went to the kitchen. but everything was slipping from her hands. Indeed, when you're in a bad mood, it's better not to stand by the stove. Mom always said that. Food absorbs everything. If you're in a good mood and happy, even scrambled eggs will taste delicious. But if it's bad, take the best ingredients, and you'll still ruin everything. Her son returned, all legs in bruises. What can you expect from him? Annabelle worried about him and realized that she needed to give her son freedom, but not tie him to her apron strings. Right, he needs to be allowed to gain experience. And experience always comes with bruises and bumps, and these memories. Polly lured Justin away. Maybe if it weren't for her, he would have come to his senses, and they would have lived with Justin now, raising children. It wouldn't have been so hard. Annabelle wouldn't count every penny. A woman, she always needs a man. Even though they praise Annabelle for being strong, she doesn't need this strength for free. It's not innate, it's acquired. Her mom wasn't strong. She just didn't need to be. Dinner was finally ready. Victor popped into the kitchen. Mom, where's Vivian? I don't know. She was supposed to go for a walk. Annabelle glanced at her watch. Nearly 10. Lost in thought about her own failed fate. She hadn't kept track of the time. And Vivian, by the way, should be home. They had an agreement. By 9, she should be home. Victor, could you run over to her friend Julia's? Annabelle asked. She's probably there, chatting away with her. All right. Mom, Victor nodded. But what if she's not there? She's probably there. Where else would she be? Annabelle replied confidently, except there was no confidence. There was instead a strange anxiety, as if her heart was hanging on a string. And the string was trembling, emitting a thin, unpleasant sound audible only to Annabelle. Her son came running back after 10 minutes. She's not there, Victor said seriously. Mom, Julia said they were out till 8, and then Vivian was supposed to come home. But she met up with Parker and went somewhere with him. Can you imagine? Oh, my God, Annabelle exclaimed, throwing her hands up. Well, I'm going to Parker's to get her. I'll give her a good talking to, logic said. Yes, Vivian is with Parker. But the string continued to emit that unpleasant, nerve-wracking sound in Annabelle's heart. She threw on a knitted cardigan and left the house. The evening was cool, with a fresh breeze blowing. It swayed the lanterns above the road, making Annabelle even more uneasy with their flickering light. Hurriedly, she made her way to the house where Parker lived with his mother. She arrived, knocked on the door, and Amelia, Parker's mother, opened it. Hello, Annabelle. What brings you here? Hi. Is my Vivian here? She's not home, and she should have been back an hour ago. Amelia crossed her arms over her chest and leaned against the door frame. No, she's not here. Seems they had a fight today. They were standing outside the house half an hour ago. Annabelle, you need to talk to Vivian. Parker needs to focus on his studies. I want to send him to college. And Vivian thinking of marrying him isn't helping. I want to give my son an education. And Vivian could use one too. Before thinking about weddings. Amelia, where did she go? Annabelle asked her neighbor. How should I know? Annabelle, is Parker home? Parker just got back 5 minutes ago and went straight to bed. Parker, Annabelle called out. Amelia frowned disapprovingly. But Annabelle didn't care. Parker appeared at the door. What? Annabelle, Parker, where's Vivian? She went to the lake. He reluctantly replied. Why? Am I supposed to keep an eye on her? The thread on which Annabelle's heart hung snapped, and her heart plummeted. To the lake? Yeah, Parker said, avoiding her gaze. That's where you should look. Annabelle felt like hitting him and Amelia. But instead, the woman ran to the lake. She didn't even say goodbye. Vivian, my dear, please don't do anything foolish, she murmured. Annabelle didn't make it to the lake. She spotted Simona and Vivian from afar, walking along the road in the lamplight. They worked strangely, as if swaying as they moved. Annabelle rushed to them, hugged her daughter, and realized she was soaking wet. She looked at Simona in bewilderment. The lodger was wet too, and her shawl was nowhere to be seen. What happened to you? Annabelle stammered, shaking her daughter by the shoulders. Vivian, talk to me. Vivian didn't say anything, bit her lip, turned away, and burst into tears like a child. Let's go home, Simona gently urged Annabelle. Vivian needs to rest. Vivian, don't be silent, please. Annabelle hugged her daughter. My girl, what happened? Nothing. Vivian sobbed. Nothing happened, Mom, really? Her daughter's back was trembling. Annabelle marveled at how thin she was, like holding a little bud in her hand. Her beloved little girl. Let's go. Vivian is cold. She needs to change, Simona repeated. Annabelle nodded briefly. She had already forgotten that she had been angry with the lodger just recently. Let's go, Annabelle agreed. Vivian, give me your hand. Her daughter placed her palm in her mother's hand. Just like in childhood, Annabelle led her down the street, trembling, wet, and scared. Something terrible was supposed to happen, but it didn't. God must have intervened. Simona worked silently, not looking at Annabelle. Instead, she occasionally glanced at Vivian with a sense of melancholy and tenderness. Once they were home, Annabelle helped her daughter change clothes and tucked her into bed, covering her with a blanket, kissing her goodnight. Vivian didn't say anything. At least she stopped trembling. But Annabelle's heart still ached with pain and sympathy. Why is it that children's pain always feels worse than our own? How does that even work? Nature's a strange thing. Well, maybe mothers take their children's pain onto themselves. If so, Annabelle was ready for it. Vivian fell asleep. Annabelle quietly left her room. Simona was sitting in the living room, her head wrapped in a towel. The towel seemed to make her face even thinner, like some noble woman in a painting by an ancient artist. Annabelle sat across from her. Simona, I'm sorry, the woman said softly. I got mad at you for no reason. It's just that once a woman took my husband, so I fought. I understand, Simona replied. I wasn't planning on getting into any kind of relationship, and Derek made it clear that there couldn't be anything between us. But he showed up, demanded that we talk. I'll tell Melissa, Annabelle declared grimly. She'll break up with him and kick him out. No need to tell her, Simona advised. If she kicks him out, you'll be blamed for the breakup. Annabelle pondered. And she was right. Why is it so hard to decide what to say and what to keep quiet? What if Derek starts cheating on Melissa later? Simona, what happened with Vivian? Annabelle finally remembered. Why were you both wet when you came back? Simona removed the towel from her head. Her hair fell onto her shoulders. You know, I probably shouldn't say anything, but I feel like I have to. The tenant sighed. Just don't blame your daughter, please. She's already been through enough. Annoyed by the conversation with Annabelle, that evening Simona went to the lake. On the way, she decided that she would return, pack her things, and leave this house, leave this town. Because she was tired of this life. She thought she could rest, but even here she was accused, reproached. As if some kind of karma hung over Simona. At the lake, Simona stopped, sat on the cold sand next to some thick bushes, hugged her knees, and stared at the dark water. Maybe she should go to a monastery. And what? A calm, quiet, measured life. No upheavals. Although the nuns would probably accuse her of trying to seduce someone. The monastery's abbot, for example. Simona heard voices. At first, they were quiet. She couldn't even make out the words. But the voices were getting closer. He's not my kid, the guy declared. How am I supposed to know if he's mine? Maybe you slept with someone else. Who? The girl exclaimed. I've only been with you, you know that. You were my first. Yeah, right. I heard you were hanging out with Austin, smiling at him. We've been in the same class since first grade. sitting at the same desk. We often hang out and smile. That's all. Vivian, listen, I don't need a kid, especially someone else's. So either sort this out, or we're done. I'm leaving for the big city soon anyway. So you'll have to prove who you gave birth to. Girls should solve these questions themselves, so there are no children. Didn't your mom teach you that? Both fell silent. Simona wanted to get up but decided not to disturb the young couple. Or maybe not so couple anymore. It seemed like this was Vivian, Annabelle's daughter. Poor Annabelle, Simona thought. She really didn't need this. Annabelle liked Simona. Yes, they were very different. But there was something about this woman that commanded respect. Some inner strength that Simona herself lacked. Parker, what should I do? The girl screamed in desperation. All I have left is to drown myself. So drown if you want. The guy replied challengingly. What do I care? Go ahead. Drown. The voices fell silent. Simona cautiously peered out of her hiding spot. The guy was nowhere to be seen. But the girl was slowly approaching the edge of the cliff. All Simona could see was her slender silhouette illuminated by the moonlight. Simona swallowed nervously. The shore was steep. It wasn't a place for swimming. Only daring boys jumped into the water. Wait, please, Simona shouted, but Vivian didn't hear her. She walked towards the cliff as if enchanted. The woman tried to catch up with her, but couldn't. Vivian jumped. There was a loud splash. Without much thought, Simona ran to the edge of the cliff and jumped after the girl. Fortunately, Simona swam like a fish, and her physical fitness was excellent due to her profession. 3 minutes later, she pulled Vivian onto the shore. It took some effort. Vivian didn't even think about helping her savior. Simona felt like she was trying to pull a sack of rocks out of the water. But thankfully, it all ended well. Simona dragged Vivian onto the sand. She coughed, then looked at her rescuer, breathing heavily. You're here? Yeah, I'm here. Simona collapsed next to Vivian and pushed a strand of hair from her face. What were you doing? Silly. He doesn't love me, Vivian whimpered. And I'm pregnant. It's been 3 weeks already, and Mom will kill me or kick me out of the house. Listen, she won't kick you out. Simona hugged Vivian's shoulders. My goodness, sweetheart, thinking of ending your life over this. You've lost your mind. But where will I go with the baby? You know, as long as you're alive, Vivian, there are always options, Simona declared. But when you are dead, that's when options run out. Have you even thought about your mother? She'll lose her mind if something happens to you. If I had kids, I'd forgive them for anything. Vivian, Simona paused. If she had kids, it hurt. Why did it hurt so much to talk about it? Let's go home. Simona stood up and pulled Vivian up by the hand. You might catch a cold out here. Vivian obediently got up and tried to shake the sand off her dress. But Mom will still be mad, she said helplessly. I've messed up. Oh, you silly thing. Simona smiled. So silly. Let's go. Annabelle couldn't believe her ears. Wait, Simona, is she pregnant? Well, I guess so. But she hasn't taken a test. The woman shrugged. They fell silent. Annabelle tried to process the information. So Vivian is pregnant. She wanted to kick Parker's ass. And she wanted to go to Amelia and give her son a piece of her mind right now. But what to do? Abortion seems like the only way out. She doesn't need a son-in-law like Parker. Obviously, you can't rely on a guy like that. And Vivian found herself someone just like her dad. Handsome but empty. Annabelle, what do you think? Simona asked quietly. What is there to think? We need an abortion. Annabelle sighed. Should she ruin her life? She's only 16. She's just finishing school. She wanted to go to beauty school. And we can't afford a baby. I barely make ends meet as it is. Vivian and Victor. Annabelle, don't rush, Simona pleaded. Trust me, abortion isn't the best option. Annabelle, I know from experience. Simona's eyes suddenly sparkled. What? Annabelle frowned. Simona, don't cry. We'll think of something. I won't force her. I'm not like that. But I want to. And I wish I would take Parker to the doctor and have everything unnecessary cut off. Simona smiled. I envy you. You have good kids. And I didn't make it. Annabelle. Sometimes I think it's because I got pregnant early too. And I got rid of the child. I thought he'd ruin my career. But it turns out, I ruined my own life. Annabelle, do you want me to tell you? Well, they say it helps to talk. Annabelle whispered. Listen, I'm not insisting. But if you want to, share. Simona tucked her still wet hair behind her ears with a slow but graceful motion. Annabelle couldn't help but admire her slender fingers. How does God grant such beauty? Yet, it seems beauty doesn't always bring happiness. Simona was born into an educated family. Her father was a conductor, and her mother a violinist. Naturally, she always knew her life would be connected with the arts. Music school, dance classes, foreign languages. Her parents strove to give their daughter the best. Simona was born late. Her mother was already 40 and her father 50. They cherished and protected their girl, whom they considered a gift from fate. Simona always felt special, different from everyone else. She was smarter, more refined, more beautiful. She wanted an extraordinary profession. Of course, she would never become an accountant or a teacher. Simona dreamed of ballet, and her dream could very well come true. She had the talent. At 10, her parents enrolled her in one of the best ballet schools in the city. The little girl worked hard. Her teachers praised her, predicting a future as a prima ballerina. Simona never considered other options. Only a prima, no corps ballet. She would shine on the best stages, period. Her mother supported her in everything. She even quit her job to help her daughter, ironing her concert costumes and driving her to performances. Simona graduated at the top of her class from the Ballet Academy. The instructors unanimously advised her to go to New York and try her luck in the theaters. Simona was excited by this idea, but her father was against it. Simona, New York, there are many like you there. It's highly competitive. People are ready to work over others. Maybe you should choose a calmer life. Here, you'll still be a star. Understand? She'll be a star there too, her mother argued. Simona has to at least try, or she'll regret it all her life if she doesn't. And the girl managed to convince her father to let her go. Her mother went with Simona. They were both confident that everything would work out. Simona was the best, period. Plus, she was beautiful, which is important for a ballerina. Big eyes, a delicate nose, full lips, and long eyelashes. Her teachers at the academy often compared her to a fragile porcelain doll. Naturally, she had admirers, but she didn't waste her time on trifles. She allowed them to work her home, but no more. Simona thought she would meet her true love in New York, and this person would surely appreciate that she had saved herself for him, not giving her first kiss to someone unworthy. Simona believed any theater would take her as soon as they saw her. But she was wrong. Simona and her mother went to countless interviews and auditions, receiving rejections everywhere. The girl was perplexed. How could this be? She was the best. Only the blind couldn't see it. Could it be that she would have to return and work in a provincial theater all her life? That couldn't be. A month later, her mother went alone to another meeting. Simona sat in their rented apartment, reading a book. She no longer believed anything would work out. It seemed her father was right. No point in trying to jump above your head. New York attracts the most talented people from across the country. Naturally, Simona just faded into the background among them. That's all. She stood up and walked to the bathroom, pausing in front of the mirror to study her face. She really did look like a doll. Simona let her hair down, and it fell in soft waves over her back. She could be an ornament on any stage. Why did no one see that? She raised her arm and struck an arabesque pose. then made a funny face and shook her head. It seemed like this plan was a failure. No one needed her here. The door opened, and her mother returned. Simona stepped into the hallway. Her mother looked strange pale, with burning eyes, clearly agitated. Did something happen? Simona asked. Yes and no. Her mother replied with a nervous smile. We need to talk. But don't worry. Simona's heart started to beat faster. About what? About your prospects. Her mother sighed. Let's go to the living room, sweetheart. I'll tell you everything. It turned out that her mother had been called to a meeting by one of the theater's sponsors, where Simona had already auditioned. He had called a few days ago and asked her mother to come to his office, but not to bring Simona along. Am I getting the part? Simona clasped her hands to her chest. Is that why he called you? Simona. Not exactly. Her mother sighed. Well, yes, but, sweetheart, he likes you. A lot. And we might be able to secure your position if you... How should I put this? If you agree to get to know him better. At first, Simona didn't understand what her mother meant. Get to know him better. How? She looked at her mother questioningly. Her mother gave her an apologetic smile. Honey, you're 19. You must understand what men think when they see a beautiful girl like you. It dawned on Simona. Oh my God. This can't be happening. I won't do it. Simona said. Mom, what are you saying? You should have told him off and left the moment he suggested such a thing. My dear girl, you're still young and naive. Her mother sighed. Think about it. He's a good man, wealthy. He could help you build a career in New York. No. Her mother's face hardened at Simona's refusal. Her lips pressed together, and a frown appeared on her forehead. You know, I once turned down a similar offer, and I could have been working in Australia, living a completely different life. Simona, back then, I thought I was being noble, but I've regretted it ever since. Life isn't simple. Some things can only be achieved in certain ways. No other. Simona swallowed nervously. Are you serious? Mom, sweetheart, I'm not forcing you. Just think about it. This could be your last chance. If you don't want to, we'll go home tomorrow, and that will be the end of it. But if you agree, you'll get the job, and you'll have good money. And maybe something more will come of it. He liked you so much that he called me to arrange this. To arrange it for you. Simona spent the entire evening talking with her mother, feeling as if her mother had suddenly become a stranger. Simona couldn't sleep that night. She tossed and turned, occasionally drifting into a fitful, anxious slumber. She didn't want to build her career through the bedroom, and she certainly never thought her mother would see this as a good option to take advantage of. Returning to their tiny hometown, spending her life dancing on a provincial stage, growing old and thinking about missed opportunities, watching the great ballerinas who made it big. What if they all did it this way? After all, ballerinas have always been popular among wealthy and influential people who helped them advance their careers. This was just how the world worked. You either played by the rules or ended up on the sidelines. Perhaps only a few could succeed on their own. The rest needed support. So why not take the support offered? Besides, Simona wasn't the one offering herself. She was receiving a proposition. She could reject it at any moment. At breakfast the next morning, she told her mother she was ready to meet the man who could get her into the theater. But if I don't like him, I'll refuse, she warned her mother. Of course, dear, her mother smiled. I knew you'd make the right decision. You won't repeat my mistake. I'll call him and arrange everything. Simona, you're a smart girl. I've always known that. 2 days later, Simona met Anthony. He was 40 years old. She didn't know much about his work, only that he was very wealthy. To her surprise, she didn't feel repulsed by him, though he seemed like a true older man to her. He was polite, courteous, gallant, and handsome, well-groomed, tall, and smelled of expensive cologne. An imposing man who knew his worth and knew what he wanted. They went to a restaurant, talking about the weather, the city's landmarks, and Simona's plans for the future. She started to think her mother had misunderstood Anthony. Maybe he just wanted to get to know the young ballerina better to see if she was worth recommending for a job. After dinner, he called for a car with a personal driver. Simona sat in the back seat. Even the car smelled different. Of leather, fine tobacco, and something faintly woody, maybe sandalwood or juniper. Anthony sat next to her and smiled. "Shall we go to my place? Or should I take you home?" Simona understood. This was the moment that would decide her fate. With a trembling voice, she asked, "To your place?" "Yes, for some coffee. To chat. It's a lovely evening, and I don't want it to end." "All right." She nodded. "I don't want it to end either." That night, nothing happened, but Simona stayed in Anthony's enormous 3-room apartment. He arranged for her things to be brought over, and was surprised at how little she had. "Only one suitcase. That won't do. We'll get you a new wardrobe." 3 days later, Anthony became her first lover. He was gentle, considerate, didn't rush her, but made it clear he wasn't abandoning his intentions. Simona decided to endure it. But she didn't have to endure it. She even liked what happened. Well, now it was his turn to fulfill his promise. Simona got the job in the theater. A new life began. She threw herself into her work. She knew people gossiped about her, saying it was obvious how she got there and what she did to earn her place in the troupe. But Simona paid no attention to the whispers. Let them say what they want. She would prove her true talent. The roles kept coming, and Simona began to think she might actually become a prima ballerina. She also started falling in love with Anthony, despite the age difference. She found him interesting and even started cooking dinners for him, something that surprised him. He mentioned that no other girl had ever cooked for him before. They all preferred ordering takeout. Simona never asked about the future, understanding that he probably didn't have serious plans for her. Yet, she was happy with him in the present, enjoying a fleeting happiness. She hoped that one day, he would see her differently and realize that she was the woman he needed. They lived like this for 2 years. Simona increasingly realized that she wanted to be Anthony's wife. Not a secret lover, not a fling or a toy, but his wife. However, Anthony often said he was a committed bachelor. He recounted his first marriage, which ended badly. "My divorce was tough," he recalled. "We were in court for nearly 2 years. She took half my property and part of my business. She stayed home and cheated on me. And when I decided to end it, she did what she did. I don't need that again. Sorry. I've decided that women are for pleasure, not obligations. That's how it is." Simona. But Simona didn't give up. When she was on stage, she danced only for him. After each performance, he gave her a huge bouquet of red roses. Marrying Anthony became her fixation. She did everything to achieve it. She was perfect for him. Wearing what he liked, keeping the apartment tidy, cooking his favorite meals, and never complaining if he was late from work. But the proposal never came. Simona went home to her parents for a couple of days and complained to her mother about living as a lover. "Yes, my dear, that's indeed bad," her mother sighed. "You know, it's very unstable. He can throw you out anytime." "I understand," Simona admitted. "So what should I do, Mom? He told me himself that he doesn't want to remarry after his first marriage." "Be smarter. Stop taking your pills." Her mother smiled. What? What are you saying?" "You heard me, daughter. Say it was a hormonal failure. Something didn't work. No method is 100% effective, you know. If you get pregnant, he won't be able to do anything." "But what if he still doesn't want to marry me despite the baby?" "Child support." Her mother frowned. "He'll have to pay child support. You won't be left with nothing." "I'm scared." Simona shivered. "I don't want to be a mother right now, sweetheart. I did everything to help you escape the swamp I couldn't get out of." Her mother sadly smiled and patted her daughter's head. "You know, Simona, good girls usually get nothing. They live quiet and calm lives like mine. Sometimes you have to be a bad girl. Understand? Simona decided to follow her mother's advice and got what she wanted. It should work the second time as well. She stopped taking the pills without telling Anthony. Pregnancy didn't come for 6 months. Simona understood why endless rehearsals, performances, and dieting. Then one day, she fainted right during a rehearsal. They called an ambulance. The doctors took a blood test and informed Simona that she was pregnant. "You're 8 weeks along," said the doctor. "To be more precise, we need an ultrasound." At first, Simona was overjoyed. It worked. Now Anthony would definitely propose to her. But after the joy came fear. What if he didn't? What if he just threw her out? Where would she go? She definitely couldn't dance with a pregnant belly. But there was no turning back now. It was as if she had jumped into the water. Now it was up to her to swim or sink. That evening at dinner, Simona told Anthony that she was expecting a baby. He was surprised. "You said you were taking care to prevent this from happening." "Well, something went wrong." Simona looked at Anthony with fear. "I don't know how it happened. I was taking the pills." "Simona, what is this?" He threw his fork on the table in frustration. "I thought you were smart. I told you, I don't want kids. I don't want a family. I understand what you're trying to achieve here, but it's not going to work." "Dear, what am I trying to achieve?" Simona asked in a barely audible voice. Her cheeks burned, and her hands trembled. God, why was she so foolish? "Here's the deal, Simona," Anthony said. "You get an abortion, and we'll figure out what to do next." "Are you going to throw me out?" He looked at her thoughtfully. "No, you suit me. But only on the condition that we don't have kids. It's just the two of us. We don't need a third. We're fine as we are, aren't we, my dear? And think about it, a child will ruin your figure. Your career will go downhill. I've arranged for you to go on a nationwide tour next year. If you have a baby, there will be no tour." "But wait, many ballerinas have children." "Yes, but it's too complicated. And I don't need that." Anthony managed to compose himself and resumed eating, as if nothing had happened, as if they were discussing what to make for dinner tomorrow rather than their future child. "I'll think about it, Anthony," Simona promised. "Good girl." He smiled. "And don't do this again. I'll forgive you this time. But if you keep trying to get me to marry you, I won't tolerate it. Understand?" "Yes, I understand." She nodded. "I understand very well." She thought about it for a long time. For 2 weeks, she couldn't decide. At night, she dreamed of a curly-haired girl calling her mommy. Simona would wake up in tears. Maybe she should go back to her parents. She had some savings. She had hardly spent her earnings, since Anthony bought everything she needed. Those savings would last her a while in her hometown. After that, she could become a teacher or even switch professions, train as a manicurist or a hairdresser, and raise her child in peace. Who knows, maybe she would find a good man who would love her and accept her, and she would have a real family. Simona told her mother about her plans. "Simona, you want to go back and have the baby?" Her mother exclaimed over the phone. "Why? Do you want to throw away everything we've worked so hard for?" "But, Mom, listen, it's my child. I don't want to." "Simona, listen to me. I've had abortions. 3 or 4. I don't even remember. Then I had you, and I don't regret it," her mother said. Simona's breath caught as if she had been punched in the stomach. Her mother had had abortions. It was unimaginable. "But, Mom," "Simona, think it over. You're still young. You'll have time to have children. But after you finish your ballet career, God, I was so happy for you, Simona. I thought you'd achieve everything I didn't. And now this. What are you thinking?" "But you were the one who told me to get pregnant." "Simona, you have to be flexible," her mother said. "Try different options. If this one didn't work out, move on. You can always try again later. Of course, it's your decision." But I would get an abortion. Anthony might still decide to marry you. Now he knows you are not infertile, and you could have a child for him later. Look for the positives in everything, silly girl." The positives seemed doubtful to Simona. Anthony would probably be happier if she couldn't have children at all. Simona had the abortion. The girl stopped appearing in her dreams. She stopped dreaming altogether. Where once she had vivid, colorful, happy dreams, now she fell into a dark void every night. She found this preferable. Dreams of the daughter she never had would have disturbed her peace of mind. Simona believed she had made the right decision, and Anthony seemed pleased. He started giving her more gifts, became more affectionate and attentive. Simona even thought he might propose soon, realizing how much she was willing to sacrifice for him. But 6 months later, Anthony told her it was over. "Why?" Simona exclaimed. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, not at all." He shrugged. "I've just decided it's time for us to go our separate ways." Simona moved out. Her tears had no effect on Anthony. He looked at her indifferently, as if she were a piece of furniture. Simona hoped he might change his mind, that he was just trying to make her appreciate him more or testing his feelings. Women often come up with such foolish explanations when a man decides to leave them. It was only later that she learned that Anthony had taken another young ballerina under his wing. He had done the same with several other girls before. Simona had lasted longer with him than most. Usually, Anthony didn't stay with one woman for more than a year. The pattern was always the same: courtship, assistance, gifts, trips, and then it abruptly ended. One leaves, another arrives. Then another man entered Simona's life. He told her he had liked her for a long time but couldn't say anything because he was friends with Anthony. He offered to take care of her, and Simona agreed. Then there was another man, and another. Simona started drinking. She felt terrible, understanding that she was living a life she never wanted, but she felt powerless, as if she were being swept away by a current she couldn't resist. Many years passed. Simona was still working at the theater, but now she danced in the Cordy Ballet, always in the second or even third cast. Fortunately, the money from her lovers was enough for a comfortable life. Several times, she found herself pregnant and wanted to keep the baby, thinking it would give her life new meaning. But each pregnancy ended in miscarriage. Doctors told her she would never be able to have children. A consequence of that first abortion, Simona lived as if in a dream. One by one, her parents passed away. She grew to hate her mother, blaming her for everything that had happened. She didn't even go to her funeral. But when her father died, she drank heavily out of grief for almost a month. She missed him and regretted not listening to him when she had the chance. She realized she had not lived her own life but had fulfilled her mother's dreams, who saw her as a reflection of herself. And what had that led to? An empty, meaningless existence. She should have kept the child. She could have had a daughter or a son. Most importantly, a little version of herself. Simona would never have forced her child to do anything they didn't want to do. But Simona had no one. Only a series of transient lovers. Simona had fewer and fewer lovers as time went on. Though she had lost the charm of youth, she still retained her beauty. With her slender figure, noble features, and large eyes. However, this beauty had not brought her happiness, and Simona doubted it ever would. The time had passed, and nothing could be reclaimed. When she turned 40, she met Will by chance. One of her boyfriends had invited her to meet his friends. They ended up arguing, although she couldn't even remember why. Perhaps she had looked at the waiter the wrong way or smiled at one of the guests, and her boyfriend perceived it as flirtation. He had literally pushed her out of the restaurant into the rain. Standing there in her evening dress with disheveled hair, smoking and crying, she realized she had no money for a taxi. She would have to walk home, across the entire city. "Madam," she turned around and saw a man. He appeared to be about 55 years old, which seemed quite elderly to Simona. "Yes," she forced a polite smile. No matter what, she couldn't show her pain. That was what all her teachers had taught her. Even if you are suffering, no one should know, especially the audience who came to enjoy the ballet. Simona applied this principle to her everyday life as well. Pain had to be hidden. Pain was weakness. Pain was always unattractive. I saw what happened, the man said, opening an umbrella over her. Do you need help? No. No, everything is fine. Simona adjusted her hair. I'm just upset. Had a fight with my fiancé. Your fiancé? The man smirked. By the way, your boyfriend is long and solidly married, so he can't be your fiancé. Simona lifted her chin. Don't be offended. The man shrugged. I know how this cruel world works. Nothing can shock or scare me. I just wanted to offer you help. And don't look at me like that. I won't ask for anything in return. I simply love beautiful women and, accordingly, hate seeing them in trouble. And you seem to be in trouble. A noble knight. She asked. Yes, call it what you will. Can I drive you home? I have a car. All right. If it's no trouble. She sighed. Then let's go. I can't leave a lady in such a state. Forgive me. Will. It took her a moment to realize he was introducing himself. Oh, Simona. Nice to meet you, she responded. They walked to his car. Once warmed up inside, Simona suddenly burst into tears like a child. She cried and talking about Anthony, about the baby that used to appear in her dreams and stopped after the abortion. She spoke of her unfulfilled dreams and her resentment towards her mother. Will listened, pulling out a pack of tissues from somewhere and handing them to her. Simona blew her nose and wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. That evening, she let herself be a hurt little girl, something she hadn't done in a long time. Do you drink? Will suddenly asked. Yes, she nodded. A lot. I know it's bad, but I can't help it. It makes things easier. I see. He sighed. It shows. It seems to affect women faster. Do you want to get treated? I don't know. I don't believe in it. She looked at him, puzzled. Why are you doing this? Do you want to save me? Maybe I do. He shrugged. But you can only save someone who wants to be saved. Do you want it? She pondered. Her life had long since become a strange, endless kaleidoscope of men, restaurants, gifts, and lonely evenings with bottles of cheap wine. She couldn't imagine life being any different. Will placed his hand on her shoulder. Simona, I can help you. Not because I want anything from you, but just imagine I'm a kind wizard, giving you a chance for change. Why not? And I won't ask for anything in return. I promise. You probably don't believe in human kindness anymore, do you? Why do you care? She whispered. You see, I don't like seeing diamonds in the dirt. Will grimaced. When I see that, I want to fix it. So, are you in or not? And she agreed. We'll send her to a rehabilitation clinic for 6 months. Exercise, healthy food, fresh air, and a strict daily routine. At first, it was hard for Simona. She suffered and regretted her decision. But she didn't leave. Every day she told herself, just one more day, and I'll go home. I'll go back to the way things were. Because I can't take it anymore. But each day she found the strength to continue. And again, she gave herself another 24 hours. And again, and again, and again. Will visited her. They walked around the clinic grounds and talked. It turned out that he was a writer. Quite a famous one. His books were translated into various languages. Simona hadn't read any of his works. He brought her a couple of novels, but she didn't understand them. They were too complex, with no clear plot. Just reflections on life and long dialogues whose meanings eluded her. She honestly admitted this to Will, and he just laughed. Good that you said it. I don't like it when people try to flatter me, saying it's genius, incredible, that it changed their life. And when you ask what exactly they liked, they start spouting nonsense. 6 months later, Simona left the rehab clinic a new person. She had new friends and new hobbies. She began to paint and write poetry. She practiced yoga every day. And she realized that she had fallen in love with Will. It seemed to be genuine, not the empty, romanticized love she had known before. She wanted nothing from him but to be near him, even if only occasionally. Perhaps she dreamed of more, but he was married and had been for a long time, since college. Simona understood that she had no chance, but she was content with their friendship. She thought Will saw her as a daughter. He and his wife didn't have children, so he had taken this unhappy, alcoholic ballerina under his wing. However, a year later, Will confessed to Simona that he had feelings for her. She would always remember that day. They were walking through an autumn park. The weather was beautiful. Yellow leaves, warm sun, and the distinct smell of damp earth. They sat on a bench. Simona had gathered a bouquet of leaves and was admiring it. Will looked at her with a strange, thoughtful gaze. Simona, yes, she smiled. Listen, this might sound foolish, but I think I love you. What? Simona was taken aback. He shrugged. Yeah, that's how it is. You know, my wife and I have been together for a long time. She's a good person, but there's no love between us anymore. Respect, affection, shared memories, daily life. But the love is gone. It happens. You probably know how it is. Do you want something from me? She looked away. I don't even know. I can't betray her. Believe it or not, I've never cheated on her. Not once in my life, despite many temptations. I worked at the university's philology department for a long time. The girls liked me, and the young postgraduate students would drop hints that they wouldn't mind. But I held firm. And now, I keep thinking about you, constantly. But my wife, you see, she's a good person, Simona. She was with me when I barely had any money, buying the cheapest meat and potatoes, and cooking dinners for me. Can you imagine? We went through tough times together. Simona placed her hand over Will's. I understand everything. I don't need anything. She felt both bitter and sweet. He loved her, and she loved him. For the first time in her life, Simona experienced what mutual love felt like. It was unfortunate that it was so hopeless, but it was beautiful. Like the bouquet of autumn leaves in her hands. Like this last autumn sun that would soon be replaced by winter cold. She kissed him on the cheek and rested her head on his shoulder. They were silent, both knowing that words no longer had meaning or importance. Simona was sure their relationship would remain platonic, but she was wrong again. They became lovers. Their secret meetings lasted long, until spring. In May, Will's wife came to see Simona. A plump, pretty, tearful woman. She begged Simona to leave Will alone, to leave town and give them a chance to mend their relationship. That's why I came here, Simona said with a sad smile. I wanted us to forget each other. Will and I, my God. I thought you were one of those women who steal men, Annabelle said. Maybe I am. Simona shrugged thoughtfully. But I don't want to ruin this woman's life. She's good, true, and so is Will. Simona, you're not so bad yourself. Annabelle glanced at her watch. It was almost morning. 5 o'clock. The dawn was breaking. Simona's life could make a great novel. I'm a bad person. Simona tilted her head. I ruined my life. Slept with men for gifts, for moments of a beautiful life. You know, I had everything. They took me to resorts, gave me jewelry, expensive jewelry, Annabelle. But there was nothing serious. I was just a doll to everyone, an object. And Will saw me as a person and loved me. But I can't do it. Listen, does he know where you are? Annabelle asked. No, of course not. Simona waved her hand. I wrote him a letter, saying not to look for me. And I came here, to you. I don't know why, just chose, wanted to rest, think about everything, decide what to do next. And have you decided? No, Annabelle, I haven't. I don't know how to live. Without him, I feel bad. Really bad. My heart aches when I think about it. Maybe he's worried about me. But I don't want to break up a family. Think about it. His wife spent her life with him, and suddenly he comes to me. I should have left back then when he confessed his love to me, so everything would end right then and there. An open ending is better than a tragic one. Annabelle. Oh, Simona. Who knows what's better? The woman shrugged. You know, one can live alone. That's how I live, after my husband left me. But that woman wasn't like you. She was just waiting for Justin to come running back to her. Oh, what a snake. Listen, you're not alone. Simona smiled softly. You have children. I envy you. I will never have anyone, never give birth to anyone. But I really want to. I want to feel what it's like. It's difficult, honestly. Annabelle chuckled softly. I never told my kids this, but sometimes I regretted that they exist. It hits you sometimes. But children, they are such a responsibility. And yet, life would have been empty without them, you know. So, what do I do with Vivian now? You'll figure it out. Simona leaned over and placed her hand on Annabelle's shoulder. Just don't let her repeat my mistake. I beg you, Annabelle. Okay, let's go to sleep, sighed the hostess. We need to get up soon. We've been talking too much, of course. But, Simona, you're an interesting woman, even if you're a city girl. The next day, neither Simona nor Annabelle mentioned their nighttime conversation. Even Vivian acted like nothing had happened. However, Melissa showed up and wanted to start a scandal because someone told her that Derek was seeing Simona while Annabelle was away. But the hostess calmed her down, explaining the situation to her friend. Like, sort out your own Derek, because Simona rejected him in front of me. Melissa cried at first, but then calmed down. She apologized and declared that she'd send Derek to hell and that she didn't need a man who chased after every skirt. Then they drank wine together, sat in the kitchen. Simona suddenly fit seamlessly into their company, as if they had known each other since childhood. Does that ever happen? Annabelle was waiting for Mike to come, but the man couldn't make it. Called, said he'd be delayed. Annabelle was disappointed. Of course. What can you do? As for her daughter Vivian, she did talk to her. Talk seriously. Even yelled. It was evening when Annabelle came home from work, already irritated, and saw Vivian lying on the couch reading a book, as if nothing had happened. For some reason, she felt a surge of anger toward her daughter. Now she had to solve the problems. But how to solve them? And here her daughter was just reading books. What did I tell you? Annabelle asked. To not. Vivian answered quietly. Exactly. And what did you do, Mom? He begged so much. She said. He said he wouldn't believe I loved him unless I did it. That relationships aren't serious without it. So I agreed. I didn't even like it at all. Just once. Right. Annabelle softened a bit. Yeah. Vivian nodded. Mom, I heard Parker is leaving town. To relatives. Is that true? The woman sighed. Of course. Amelia decided to protect her son, to hide him for a while, and let Annabelle solve the problem herself. Oh, it's a pity Annabelle herself doesn't have two sons. It's somehow easier with boys. Girls, on the other hand, have a tendency to create and multiply parental problems. I don't know. Annabelle sat down next to her daughter. You'd better tell me what to do, sweetheart. Vivian looked at her mother with such unhappy eyes that Annabelle's heart ached for her child. Silly, but so dear. Okay. Annabelle sighed. You don't have any suggestions? Maybe abortion. I'm scared. The girl whispered. And it's sad. He's alive in there, Mom. Isn't he? He is. Silly. Annabelle pulled her daughter closer, inhaling the scent of her hair. Just don't even think about going to the lake anymore, understood? Don't make matters worse. We'll figure something out. But in reality, Annabelle didn't know what to do. Time was running out, and soon no one would perform an abortion. Doctors wouldn't take on such cases. and they pretended like nothing was happening, as if Annabelle was hoping for a miracle. Meanwhile, Simona was settling into the town, suddenly becoming friends with Melissa. One day, Annabelle came home and saw her friend and roommate in front of the mirror. Melissa was unrecognizable. Her eyes suddenly huge, lips plump, short hair in light waves. "What have you done here?" Annabelle exclaimed. "Well, I learned a thing or two." Simona shyly smiled. "We decided to change Melissa's image a bit. How do you like it?" "Wow, amazing." Annabelle smiled. "Derek will go crazy when he sees you. He'll want to come back." "He does want to come back. Says he made a mistake. But I won't let him." Melissa pursed her lips. "I don't need him anymore. The jerk." Annabelle chuckled. "So, did you remember what to do?" Simona asked. "Go to work tomorrow like that. He'll definitely notice. I'm telling you." "But I don't have any cosmetics," Melissa said. "Just one lipstick, and it's some orange color. Here, take mine." Simona handed Melissa her makeup bag. "But this is all expensive," Melissa protested. Simona shook her head in response. "Come on. I got it as gifts, or bought when I had money. I still have plenty at home in the city. Take it." "Simona, can you do my makeup?" Annabelle dared. "I just want to see myself differently." "Of course." Simona pointed to the chair. "Take a seat." Half an hour later, Annabelle looked at herself in the mirror and was almost speechless. She didn't seem so old after all. And her eyes, for some reason, weren't gray anymore but blue, bright. And there was a blush on her cheeks. "Girls, you have to love yourselves," said Simona. She looked at Annabelle as her best pupil, with pride and even admiration. "No time." Annabelle touched her cheek with her finger. "Oh, seriously? It turns out you can just repaint your face. If only I had the time for it." Melissa forgave Derek after all, whether it was the makeup or she just loved him. Derek even proposed to her, and Melissa said yes. But what to do with Vivian, Annabelle didn't know. If she kept the baby, rumors would spread in the town, and she wouldn't be able to leave to study in the big city. Where would she go with a newborn? And Annabelle wouldn't be able to take care of the baby herself. Work. There's not enough time. One evening, Simona suggested to Annabelle to take a walk by the lake. The woman agreed. They strolled through the streets lit by lanterns, streets that Annabelle had known since childhood. And suddenly life felt fleeting to her. So much had happened, yet nothing changed. Simona seemed to hear her thoughts. "Night, street, lantern, what?" Annabelle asked. "Oh, nothing. Just thinking." "Annabelle, don't you dare think I'm crazy." "Okay, well, it depends on what you say." Annabelle sighed. "Maybe I will." "Well, you know, I have something. A man from my past gave me an apartment as a gift. I live there alone. I have some money saved up. I'm planning to become a ballet teacher at a dance school and teach dance at a rehabilitation center. You know how good dance is for people. What's your point?" Annabelle glanced at her. "Well, I'm happy for you. But no, just listen. I understand. You've only known me for a month. Oh, Lord, where do I start?" "Annabelle, it's about your Vivian," Simona said. "What about Vivian?" Annabelle asked. "Look, basically, I have a plan, but you have to listen first, and then you can object. And you'll definitely object. So, let Vivian stay with me in the city for a while. Then she can give birth in the city. And then I'll become the guardian of her child. Not adopt, but be the guardian. You can take the baby back at any time." Annabelle suddenly stopped. "Are you serious about this?" "Yes, Annabelle, I'm serious." Simona closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then opened them. Annabelle noticed that her lips were trembling. "I told you everything about myself. You know, Annabelle, I remember the child I killed with my own hands. When I came to you, that curly-haired girl started appearing in my dreams again. reaching out, calling me mommy. I kept wondering, why am I having these dreams? Why is God torturing me like this? And then I realized, this is why. I have to do this, or at least try to do this. Annabelle, you know that Vivian is thinking about an abortion. An abortion. She didn't say anything. The woman was alarmed. That's why I'm telling you, she's thinking about it. Simona nodded. Yesterday I overheard her talking to Parker on the phone. She was screaming, crying, and then she said she'd have an abortion. Annabelle, think about it. I'll take care of your grandson, I promise. Anything's better than an abortion. You can't get rid of a living person. Annabelle didn't know what to say. It was such a wild proposition. How could she give away a child? Just like that, into someone else's hands. But on the other hand, she didn't have many options. She couldn't afford to raise a baby. She'd have to sacrifice something for it. Maybe Vivian's education, or Victor's, for example, or even her own shop. Anger flashed towards her daughter. Couldn't she have waited a bit? What was the rush? That Parker, he's such a scoundrel. Simona, listen, this is complicated. I need to think about it. Consult with my daughter. She's the mother after all. I'm more inclined towards abortion. Annabelle said softly. No, you shouldn't. Simona folded her arms across her chest. Annabelle, you shouldn't. Maybe this child is a sign from God. You know, when I was coming to your town, I saw a cloud in the sky, like an angel. I thought it might be my guardian angel, signaling that everything in life was about to change for the better. And now all of this. Annabelle froze. You saw an angel? Well, yes. Simona smiled. Sounds silly. Probably. No, not silly. Annabelle answered thoughtfully. Not silly at all, Simona. The next day, Annabelle talked to her daughter Vivian. She burst into tears when she learned about her mother's plans. Vivian, I won't force you, Annabelle said gently. Not for anything. It's your decision. I'm just offering you an option. But if necessary, to hell with the shop. I'll close it and take care of the grandchild while you study. So, the decision is yours. Vivian sighed. You know, Mom, when Simona saved me, I thought it wasn't just a coincidence. I really wanted to die. And she just happened to be there. Exactly her. No one else. So, I guess it's right. And Annabelle hugged her daughter. Vivian cried. Annabelle stroked her little girl's back and looked out the window. Above the hill hung a strange cloud, as if huge wings spread across the horizon. So, everything was right. Everything as it should be. A year later, Annabelle was returning home from the store. It was a scorching summer. June. It was hard to breathe during the day. What would happen next? Last year, it seemed like summer was milder. Then came autumn. Vivian went to live with Simona. She had to switch to homeschooling. At school, Annabelle lied, saying it was due to family circumstances. And thankfully, no one asked any further. Thank God. Vivian gave birth to a daughter, Nancy. Fortunately, the birth went smoothly, and the pregnancy was easy. True, then there was paperwork to deal with. Simona was over the moon with happiness. She couldn't let go of the baby. She still can't get enough of her. And Vivian stayed with Simona. She plans to go to college. She visits her mom, of course, but she's bound to fly the nest soon. It's good that Vivian has Simona. She'll help, guide, and make sure she doesn't get into trouble again. Although Vivian has already learned her lesson the hard way, she'll be careful. And Austin, who's been in love with Vivian since childhood, went after her. He's also preparing to go to college to become an engineer. Hopefully, everything will work out for Vivian and Austin. He's a good guy. He's ready to wait for Vivian. True, Annabelle didn't know how he would react to Vivian giving birth. Either he'll understand, or he won't. There's nothing to be done about it now. The main thing is that everything is fine with Vivian. And little Nancy is fine too. And Simona really seemed like a guardian angel had finally arrived. Remembered her. Decided to fix everything at once. Will came to her. He said he finally divorced his wife. She let him go. They talked, cried, and decided to part as friends. She saw how he longed for Simona and realized that there was no love between them anymore. There's only habit and nothing more. Will's ex-wife started traveling the world, fulfilling her long-held dream, and Will himself proposed to Simona. She told that he almost fainted when she opened the door holding Nancy. He thought she had given birth while they hadn't seen each other. But Simona explained everything. And Will, it seems, was even happy. He said he wanted children, but his wife couldn't because of her health. So now Nancy has two moms, and it seems like a dad, albeit an older one, and Annabelle didn't mourn her daughter for long. Mike came to her, said he divorced his wife. He stayed with Annabelle for a month, to rest, to sort out his thoughts. In the end, he stayed for good. He confessed that he had liked Annabelle for a long time, even when they met in their youth. But he didn't dare to confess. After all, she was his brother's wife. But apparently, the feeling didn't disappear over the years. It smoldered for many years, and suddenly flared up with renewed vigor. Annabelle herself didn't understand what was happening. But for some reason, she was happy. For herself, for her daughter, and for Simona. She looked at the sky, clear and cloudless. Apparently, her guardian angel was always Nubby, and he definitely knew better when and what should happen.